Welcome everyone to this module on writing essentials. In this series of lectures, sentences, this is lecture number 7 and in which we are going to talk about the tense consistency in sentences. Whenever we write a sentence, it is very essential that we keep the verb tense consistent throughout. The verb tense tells readers the time an action takes place. It tells us when an action occurs, or it occurred, or it will occur. So as writers, we need to know how to use it accurately. Verbs have three basic tenses. One is the present tense, the past tense, and the future tense. A passage that begins in present tense should continue in present tense. If it begins in past tense, it should stay in the past tense. Look at this sentence. When we increase advertising expenses, we reduced profits. Now in this sentence, the structure or the formation of it is faulty because the first clause has a verb increase in present tense, whereas the second clause has a verb reduced in the past tense. So the right way of writing it could be using present tense in both the clauses or using past tense in both the clauses. So probably after correction, the sentences would look something like this. When we increase advertising expenses, we reduce profits. When we increased advertising expenses, we reduced profits. So since tense is used to convey meaning, we need to be very careful how we write a particular tense in a sentence. Look at this sentence. Richard discovered that Paro had left home and gone to work. Now when we look at this sentence, it has discovered a simple past tense, then had left the past perfect tense, and gone is something like a past participle form of the verb go. But when we read it, we come to understand that Paro had left home and she had gone to work. But if we change the tenses in the above sentence, write something like went uh, rather than gone, then the sentence becomes like Richard discovered that Paro had left home and went to work. Now here we find that the verb went is talking about Richard rather than Paro. In the previous sentence, it was like Paro had left home and gone to work, whereas in the second sentence, it is like Richard discovered and he went to work. Let's look at another example to understand how tense convey meaning in a sentence. Linda already had bought groceries and cooked dinner when Hal arrived. Now, we find in this case that when Hal arrived, Linda had already completed two actions before his arrival. One is she had bought groceries and she has also cooked dinner. Linda had already had bought groceries and was cooking dinner when Hal arrived. Now, when we look at this sentence, we find that when Hal arrived, Linda had completed just one action, that is, she had bought groceries, but was in the middle of another action, that is, cooking dinner. So, one was a completed action, the other a not yet completed action. So, tense does convey meaning in sentences. So we have to be careful what sentence we use, what tense we use in the sentence, and if you're using it properly or not. Sometimes a writer must show that an action occurred at another time, regardless of the tense in which the passage begins. So sometimes we can have an action that was occurring when you're talking about even past tense. So to allow this situation, each of the basic tenses, that is past, present and future, have three subdivisions, that is continuous, perfect and perfect continuous. So let's try to understand this using the case of present tense. So present tense can have simple present tense and also three other subdivisions: present continuous, present perfect and present perfect continuous. Now the simple present tense shows action that happens now or actions that happen routinely. The present continuous, which is also called as the present progressive form, shows an action that is happening only now. So whenever we talk about actions happening just now or now, we use helping verbs to denote it. And the helping verbs are generally of the be verb, that is am, is and are. And they always precede the ing form or the continuous form of the verb to create the present continuous tense or the present progressive tense. Now the present perfect tense shows an action that was completed in the indefinite past. So it's something like something is completed but we do not know when it was actually completed. And to denote the perfect tenses, we use the helping verb has or have. And they always precede the past form of the verb to create this tense. Similarly, the present perfect continuous tense shows an action that began in the past and is continuing in the present. So here, to talk about the perfect or the action that had began in the past, we use the helping verbs have or has and has been. And then the verb is always preceded by have been or has been, and the verb, because it's continuous tense, so we use the ing form of the verb. So let's look closely at what are the present tense forms. So as it has been observed, the present tense has four forms: simple present, present continuous, present perfect and present perfect continuous. Now simple present shows actions happening now or routinely. So these are some actions which always happen. For example, optimists hope for the best. Smoking causes cancer in millions of people. So hope or causes, and these are the present simple present forms of the verb. So we use the base form of the verb, and if it's singular, it's we add s, like smoking causes, and if it's plural, like optimists, we use only the base verb without s, that is optimist hope. Let's look at the continuous form. Now the continuous form is the ing form, and it is always preceded by either am or is or are. If it's singular, it's am and is, and if it's plural, it's are. Now these talk about actions happening now or at the time of the speaking. Optimists are hoping for the best. Smoking is causing cancer. So when it's singular, it's is causing or am causing when it's like I. And when it's plural, then we use are hoping or optimists are hoping. Now look at the present perfect. Now the present perfect shows actions that began in the past, in the indefinite past. So generally we use, to denote the perfect, we use have and has before the past participle of the verb. Optimists have hoped for the best. Smoking has caused cancer in millions of people. Now, in present perfect form, we talk about incidents in indefinite past. So we don't know actually when it started. The present perfect continuous. It shows actions that began in the past and even continue now. So we use has been or have been before the ing form of the verb. Optimists have been hoping for the best. Smoking has been causing cancer in millions of people. All present tense forms can be used without shifting the verb tense. So let's read a paragraph and see how this is done, where we use all the present tense forms without shifting the verb tense in a paragraph. The city planners are hoping to revamp the old stadium, which the Redbirds use. For years, fans have complained about parking, and officials pay little attention. Season ticket holders have been boycotting games for the last month, but their absence has gone unnoticed. They demand adequate parking. Now in this case, we have present continuous form like are hoping, and we have simple present forms like use or pay or demand. We also have present perfect continuous forms like have been boycotting, and present perfect form like have complained or has gone. If you observe carefully, we have not shifted from present tense to past tense or future tense and so on, but the tense consistency is maintained. Though we have used all the present tense forms, but we have not shifted the verb tense. So this is how we can maintain consistency of a particular tense in a paragraph. Now let's look at the past tense forms. The past tense also has four forms: the simple past, the past continuous, the past perfect, and the past perfect continuous. Now the simple past tense shows action that was completed in the past, and we know for sure when it was completed. So it's like in the definite past. It uses the past form of the verb. The past continuous tense shows an ongoing action in the past. To form this tense, a helping verb was or were is used, and it precedes the ing form of the verb. If it's singular, it is like was, and if it's plural, were is used. The past perfect tense shows an action completed in the past before some other past action. The helping verb had precedes the past participle form of the verb to form the past perfect. So in the case of past perfect, we have two actions. One action is completed in the past before some other past action. The past perfect continuous tense shows continuing action that began in the past before another action in the past. So the helping verbs had been are used, and they precede the progressive form of the verb to form this tense. Now let's look more closely at all of these four past tense forms. So simple past is used to denote actions completed in the past. For example, parents spoke to the teachers. The principal held the meetings. The past continuous form, because it's continuous, we use the ing form. It denotes continuing actions in the past. And to denote past, we use the helping verbs was or were. Was is used in singular cases, and were is used in plural cases. For example, parents were speaking to the teachers. The principal was holding the meetings. Past perfect is used to denote actions completed prior to another past action. So to talk about this, we use the helping verb had, and it precedes the perfect form of the verb, that is the past participle. Parents had already spoken to the teachers. The principal had already held the meetings. You might have observed that whether it is singular or plural, in both the cases we use had. The past perfect continuous is used to talk about a continuing action in the past before another action in the past. So here we use the phrase had been before the ing form of the verb. Parents had been speaking to the teachers for half an hour by the time I arrived. The principal had been holding the meetings before the math teacher took over. So here we find two past actions, and which are actually preceded by a continuing action in the past. Once again, all the past tense forms can be used in one writing passage, and it can be used to not to shift the tense in the sentence. Last fall, school officials warned students about bringing cell phones to school. Most students complied with the request. However, some ignored the rules and continued to carry the cells they had been bringing to school. They had carried them the previous year and planned to continue. Around mid-year, several students were suspended. A Times reporter who had been following the story challenged the legality of the school's rule. A suit has been filed on behalf of the suspended students, but it has not come before the court. In this case, if you carefully observe, all the four past tense forms are used, like simple past in the case of warned, complied, continued, challenged, and planned. And the same way, past continuous has been used, like in the case of uh, or we have your past perfect has been used, and past perfect continuous has also been used. So in this fashion we can actually write all the past tense forms in one writing passage, and we need not shift to past and present and future and so on. This is how consistency of one particular tense can be maintained in one paragraph. Now let's look at the future tense forms. Now future tense shows action that has yet to happen. The helping verbs will, would or shall precede the present form of the verb to form the future tense. The future continuous tense shows ongoing actions in the future. To form this tense, we use the helping verb phrases like will be, shall be, or would be, and they precede the ing form of the verb. The future perfect tense shows actions that will be completed. The helping verb phrases will have, would have, or will have been precede the past participle form of the verb to form the future perfect. The future perfect continuous tense shows continuing actions that will be completed before another future action or time. The verb phrases will have been, would have been, or shall have been precede the progressive form or the continuous form of the verb to form this tense. Let's take a closer look. So the simple future talks about actions that will happen in future, and we use the helping verbs will, shall, or would. We will begin a letter writing campaign. Newspapers will cover this case. And the future continuous talks about actions that will be continuing in a future time. Everyone will be writing letters. Newspapers will be covering this case. So the ing form of the verb is preceded by the phrase will be or would be. The future perfect talks about actions that will be completed before another future action or time. For example, by summer we will have written reams of letters. By summer, every newspaper will have written about this case. So it's something like two actions are happening and one action is actually happening before another future action. And generally the phrase will have will precede the past participle form of the verb. In this case, it's written. The future perfect continuous tense talks about actions, continuing actions that will be completed before another future action. By then, legislators will have been receiving letters throughout the year. By summer, newspapers will have been covering the case for 3 months. So what we find here is the ing form of the verb is preceded by will have been or would have been. Just like the two previous cases, all future tense forms can be used in just one writing passage, so that they do not constitute a shift in the tense. Look at this paragraph to see how it is done. Because so many people are moving to the area, K&M Real Estate will develop the land just east of the river. This will assure that the property value of the surrounding neighborhood will increase. K&M will be building modern condominiums which will add a nice aesthetic to the neighborhood. By next spring, the park next to the condos will have been completed and people will have been living in the condos since February. Now we have used simple future form like will develop, will assure or will increase, and then we have also used future continuous form like will be building, and there is also a future perfect form like will have been completed, and also a future perfect continuous form like will have been living. So in this fashion we can maintain one particular tense all through a paragraph by using the different tense forms of that particular tense. Now there are some common tense confusions. One of the most common confusions in tense is between the simple present or the present continuous. So we generally get confused to write whether it is the sun rises or the sun is rising. Similarly, one other case of confusions is the simple past versus the present perfect. Or we also have the future tense confusions like we have going to forms or will plus verb forms or the simple present forms. Now let's look at each of them. Now there is a difference between the way we use present simple and present continuous. Now present simple is used to talk about actions like facts or habits or routines or permanent situations. Whereas present continuous is used to talk about actions of things happening now at the moment of speaking, or temporary habits or new habits. We also use present continuous to talk about temporary situations. And the signal words that we find in present simple are always, usually, often, not often or never, sometimes, every morning, so on. In the case of present continuous, the signal words could be like now, at the moment, this morning or this week or in the afternoon, etc., or words like look or listen. So present simple is about some actions which happen all the time, now, even before, in the past time, or even in the future time. So we use the base form, that is just the verb's present form or yes along with it. In the case of third person singular like he, she or it, we use the base form plus s like he reads or she reads. Whereas when it is I read, you read, we read or they read. The negative sentence will be he does not read or she does not read. I do not read, we do not read or they do not read. The questions would be like do I read, do we read or do you read, or does he read or does she read. In the case of the present continuous, the action is only happening now at the point of time of speaking. So here it is formed by using um, an auxiliary verb related to the verb be like am, or is before the present participle or the ing form of the verb. I am reading or he is reading, or it could be we are reading. The negative would be I am not reading, he is not reading, or we are not reading. The questions are formed as are you reading, are we reading, am I reading, or is she reading. Now let's do an activity to understand this, if simple present or present continuous form of the verb could be used. Yes, in the first case, because the signal word is never, it would be simple present. David never cleans up his room. In the second sentence, the signal word is at this moment, so which talks about present continuous. So Deborah is preparing dinner at this moment. In the third sentence, it's every Saturday, talks about simple present, so we have a Zoom meeting every Saturday. In the fourth case, the signal word is listen, which is a present continuous form. So listen, a bird is singing, and so on. The other case where we generally have problem is simple past and present perfect. Now look at this sentence. I lost my keys. I have lost my keys. When I say I lost my keys, I am sure that I lost it, and I know it is in the past. But when I say I have lost my keys, I know I have lost my keys, but I do not know the time when I lost them. So the meaning of in the first case would be that I lost my keys some time back. And in the second case, it would be like I have lost my keys, but I'm still searching for them. So in the first case, where I know for sure that an action is complete, it's called the simple present, past. And in the second case, where I know that the action is in the past, but I do not know the time, so or the action is still continuing, it has its effect in the present time, we use the present perfect tense. So what's the difference? In the simple past, we use the past form of the verb, something like someone opened. The negative would be someone did not open, and the question form would be did someone open. Whereas in the case of the present perfect, it is like we use the have or has, and it precedes the past participle form of the verb, that is open. I have opened, you have opened, we have opened, they have opened. When it is the third person singular like he, she or it is he has opened, she has opened, it has opened. The negative would be I have not opened or he has not opened. The question would be have I opened or has he opened? One other confusion is regarding the usage of past continuous or past simple. Now, if an action was happening in the past, when another action interrupted, uh, that case would be the past continuous. While he was having a shower, the phone rang. So the phone rang is the simple past form, and he was having a shower is the past continuous form. The past perfect tense is generally used to talk about an action which has already taken place before another past action. I noticed that he had left his books behind. Now, he had left is a previous action before the actual action noticed. So since noticed is also simple is in the past, it's in the simple past form, and the had left is in the past perfect form. Finally, let's take a look at these two distinct forms, that is present perfect continuous or the past perfect continuous. The present perfect continuous is used to describe the duration of an action that began in the past and continues into the present. And the past perfect continuous is used to emphasize the duration of an action that was completed before another action in the past. He has been studying grammar for an hour. She has been cooking all day. That means he is still studying and she is still cooking. She had been driving around the city for 3 hours before she finally found the right house. That means now she has stopped driving. Let's take a quick look at the future tense. There are different ways to express the future. One way is the usage of will and shall. The cinema will close in November. We shall close the doors for the last time. It expresses a prediction, a definite opinion about the future. We can sometimes use I'll or we will for an instant decision. Will sometimes also expresses willingness. The other way of writing future forms is be plus going to. We use the be form plus going to the base form of for a present situation which points to the future. Something like when we talk about intentions or plans or arrangements, we use be going to or the present continuous but not will. So it's like it's 10 already, we are going to be late. This fence is going to fall down soon. So here it's something like we are talking in the present and we are pointing to a future action. So arrangements and plans and intentions can be in the future can be used or can be talked about by using present continuous form. Now we can also use simple present tense forms for the future. For example, I'm meeting Gavin at the shop tonight. What are you doing tomorrow? Now we use the present continuous for what someone has arranged to do, and we use the simple past, simple present to talk about the future, but only for what we see as part of a timetable. For example, the cup final is on May 7th. The train leaves at 16:40. So simple present when used for future talks about timetable or fixed arrangements. And present continuous when we use it to talk about future is something like an arrangement, what someone has planned to do. Right. So we should not use past tense to make a statement about a present condition. Zelda met the new director. He was very tall. When we say he was very tall, does he mean that he's not still tall? Yeah, Zelda met the new director. He's very tall. So we should not use past tense to make a statement about a present condition. I visited a bed and breakfast inn near the edge of town. The building was Victorian in its model. Isn't it still Victorian? So it's better to use is Victorian rather than was Victorian, because we are talking about making a statement about the present condition. So present tense is for statements of general truth or fact. We use the simple present. Even if a passage is written in the past tense, a general statement of truth or fact is written in the present tense. Something like, during Galileo's time, few people believed that the earth revolves around the sun. Though we are talking about something of a general statement in the past time, we still have to write the general fact, like earth revolving around the sun, in the present form, that is simple present. Right. So in this video, we learned about the different tense forms and also why it is essential to maintain consistency of a particular tense in a paragraph and how we can do it. For any questions or queries in this video, you can contact us at the details given. Thank you for watching.